The sun hangs high over the ancient city of Acrogas in Sicily. The year is 560 BC. In the center of the public square stands something that should not exist, a masterpiece of bronze craftsmanship that gleams like molten gold under the Mediterranean light. It is a bull life-sized hollow. Beautiful, the crowd has gathered in silence, thousands of faces pressed together waiting. On a marble throne overlooking the square sits Phalaris, tyrant of Acrogas, master of this city, architect of its terror. His expression is calm, almost bored. He raises one hand from the shadows of the palace. Guards emerge between them. A man, he is screaming, thrashing against iron grips. His voice cracks as he begs, pleading for mercy, for reason, for anything. The guards drag him toward the bull. Closer, closer, until he can see his own reflection distorted in the polished bronze. There is a door hidden in the side of the beast, cunningly designed to blend with the metalwork. The guards wrench it open. The man's screams reach a pitch that silences even the murmuring crowd. They shove him inside. The door slammed shut. A metallic clang echoes across the square like a death knell. Then the fire. Servants rush forward with torches, piling wood beneath the belly of the bull. Flames lick upward, embracing the bronze. For a moment, there is only the crackle of burning wood. Then it begins. A sound rises from inside the bull. Not human, not quite. It is the bellow of an animal, deep, resonant, almost musical. The crowd stirs, some gasp, others lean forward. Phalaris smiles. But we know the truth inside that bronze prison. A man is dying. His screams, raw, primal, filled with unimaginable agony, are being transformed by an ingenious system of pipes and acoustic chambers built into the bull head. The device does not just kill, it performs. It turns human suffering into entertainment, death into art. This is the Brazen Bull. History remembers it as one of the most sadistic execution methods ever conceived. But here is the question that haunts us across 26 centuries. Who invented this nightmare? And did they survive their own creation? The man whose screams now fill the square is Perillos of Athens, brilliant metalworker, ambitious craftsman, and the very architect of his own destruction. To understand how we arrived at this moment, we must step back to when Phalaris was not yet a monster, but merely a man hungry for power. He rose from obscurity through cunning rather than birthright in the fractured political landscape of ancient Sicily, where Greek colonies competed for dominance and survival. Phalaris positioned himself as a champion of the common people. He spoke their language, promised them prosperity, delivered them enemies. The hate. Classic demagogue playbook, ancient edition, around 570 BC. He seized control of Acrogas through a carefully orchestrated coup. The previous rulers were eliminated, their supporters purged, and Phalaris installed himself not as king, that word carried too much weight, too many expectations, but as tyrant. In the Greek sense, absolute ruler, answerable to no one. But absolute power requires absolute control, and control Phalaris understood required spectacle. Fear alone was not enough. Fear had to be seen, felt, remembered. Enter Perillos. He arrived in Acrogas sometime in the mid-560s BC, a metalworker from Athens seeking patronage. The Greek world was filled with such men, talented craftsmen moving from city to city, court to court, looking for the one commission that would secure their legacy. Perillos was brilliant. His work with bronze was renowned, but brilliance without recognition is just talent wasted, and Perillos craved recognition the way other men craved wine or gold. He observed Phalaris carefully, studied the tyrant methods, noted how public executions had become routine, almost mundane. The people were growing desensitized to simple beheadings, stonings, crucifixions. Standard violence had lost its edge, so Perillos conceived something new, a bronze bull, magnificent artistic symbol of strength and virility, but hollow, large enough to contain a human being, and equipped with an acoustic system so ingenious, so perverse, that it would transform the victim dying screams into the musical bellowing of the beast itself. The smoke from burning flesh would waft through vents as incense. The bronze would gleam. The crowd would watch, and the tyrant would demonstrate that he possessed not just power over life and death, but the creativity to make death itself beautiful. Perillos presented his design to Phalaris in private audience. He spoke of art, of innovation, of how this device would cement Phalaris' reputation not just as a ruler, but as a patron of unprecedented sophistication, justice, and aesthetics merged into one gleaming creation. Historical sources tell us that Phalaris was immediately captivated. He commissioned the work on the spot, provided unlimited resources, gave Perillos access to the finest bronze, the most skilled assistance, whatever he needed. But there was one condition. First, Phalaris said, his voice smooth as oil, we must test if it works as you claim. Perillos agreed, of course. He did. He was too intoxicated by royal approval to see the trap closing around him. Months later, the bull was complete, a masterwork. Perillos had poured everything into it, his skill, his ambition, his desperate need for validation. The bronze was polished to a mirror, finished so flawless that observers could see their own faces reflected back, distorted and strange. The acoustic system was a marvel of ancient engineering, a complex arrangement of pipes and chambers inside the bull head that would capture sound entering from the body cavity, modulate it through carefully calculated resonances, and emit it from the mouth as a deep bovine bellow. Even the small details revealed obsessive craftsmanship, vents positioned to allow smoke to escape in thin aesthetic streams, a bore so cunningly fitted that when closed it became nearly invisible, every element designed for maximum psychological impact. The unveiling took place before Phalaris' four court generals, advisors, wealthy merchants, foreign dignitaries. Perillos stood beside his creation, visibly trembling with pride. He explained the mechanics in exhaustive detail, his voice rising with excitement as he described how the victim's screams would be transformed, how the device represented a new fusion of art and state power. The court was mesmerized, horrified perhaps, but mesmerized. Then Perillos made a demonstration. He climbed partway into the bull, crouching in the entrance, and spoke loudly to show how his voice resonated through the chambers. The court heard it, his words emerging from the bull mouth as distorted, deeper, stranger murmurs of dark appreciation rippled through the audience. Phalaris leaned forward on his throne. Fascinating, he said, but to truly appreciate the full effect, should not you demonstrate from entirely inside, so we can hear the perfect sound quality as you intended? Perillos hesitated, just for a heartbeat, but the tyrant eyes held his, and the court waited, and the moment stretched. And in that moment, Perillos made the fatal calculation that has doomed ambitious men throughout history. Surely after all this work, after this triumph, the ruler would not betray him. Not now. Not after he had delivered exactly what was promised. He climbed fully inside. The door slammed shut behind him. For a frozen second, the court held its breath. Then Phalaris gestured, and the servants rushed forward with torches and kindling. The fire was lit beneath the bronze belly inside the bull. Perillos understood his mistake too late. His fists hammered against the bronze. His voice, no longer proud, no longer explaining, just screaming, filled the cavity. And then, as the metal began to heat, as the temperature climbed and climbed, his screams transformed exactly as he had promised they would. The bull bellowed. The court watched in silence as the device performed flawlessly. Perillos' agony, his terror, his desperate realization of betrayal, all of it converted into the melodic sound of an animal cry. Some sources claim Phalaris pulled Perillos out before death merely to demonstrate the device's effectiveness before executing him by other means. Others say the inventor died as the bull first victim, breathing his last inside his own creation. Either way, one thing was certain: Phalaris had sent a message. Not just to Perillos, but to everyone watching. Innovation in service of power would be rewarded, but the innovator was disposable. The device mattered, the man did not, and now the tyrant had his instrument of terror. Let us be clear about what happened inside that bronze prison, because understanding the physical reality of the Brazen Bull is essential to grasping its true horror. When the door sealed shut, the victim found themselves in near total darkness. The interior cavity was just large enough for an adult to crouch, but not stand or lie down comfortably. Bronze surrounded them on all sides, initially cool to the touch, smooth, unyielding. Then the fire beneath was lit bronze, is an excellent conductor of heat. As the flames grew hotter, the metal absorbed that thermal energy and distributed it evenly throughout the structure. The temperature inside did not spike immediately. It climbed gradually, methodically, like water coming to boil. At first, discomfort, the metal warm against skin, sweating, begins breathing, becomes labored in the enclosed space. Then pain, the bronze grows hot enough to burn on contact. Victims would try to minimize contact with the walls, pressing themselves into the center of the cavity, but the floor was heating. To stand on burning feet or crouch with burning hands, there was no safe position. Then agony, the air itself became superheated. Each breath seared the lungs, the body cooling mechanisms. Sweat respiration failed catastrophically in the contained environment to a temperature skyrocketed. Organs began shutting down. Ancient sources suggest the process lasted between 15 and 30 minutes from firelighting to death. Modern forensic analysis supports this timeline. Cause of death varied, sometimes hypothermia, sometimes asphyxiation from superheated air damaging the respiratory system, sometimes shock from the sheer overwhelming nature of the pain. The brain, in its final defense, would produce hallucinations. Time distortion was common, seconds feeling like hours. Some victims likely lost consciousness before death. The body merciful shutdown, protecting the mind from complete annihilation, and through it all the acoustic system worked exactly as designed. The pipes captured every scream, every desperate gasp, every wordless animal sound of suffering, and transformed them. The crowd outside heard only the bull, deep, resonant bellowing. The human being inside was erased, reduced to sound effects for a tyrant theater. This is what Perillos experienced. This is what he built, but his death was only the beginning. Over the next decade, the Brazen Bull became Phalaris' signature, his brand, the execution method that defined his reign. Political dissidents were the most common victims, men who spoke against the tyrant policies, who questioned his authority, who represented alternative visions. For Akhrigas into the bull they went. Merchants accused of conspiracy, real or imagined, followed philosophers who taught ideas Phalaris deemed dangerous, former allies who had outlived their usefulness. Each execution became an event. Phalaris would schedule them for festival days, ensuring maximum attendance. The bull would be positioned prominently in the square. Announcements would be made. The crowd would gather, not always willingly, but they gathered fear and fascination. Our close cousins and Phalaris would watch from his throne as the performance unfolded. Sometimes he hosted banquets during executions, dining with foreign visitors and important citizens, while the bull bellowed in the background, normalizing atrocity through repetition, making the unthinkable routine. Historical accounts mention specific victims. A rival named Zeno, who had challenged Phalaris, claimed to power. He died in the bull, his political movement dying with him. A poet who had written verses critical of tyranny silenced permanently. His words literally turned into animal sounds. A general suspected of plotting rebellion executed as a warning to the military. But terror as a governing strategy has a fatal flaw. It only works until it does not. The human capacity for horror is not infinite. After enough exposure, after enough repetitions, the shockwaves of the crowd grows numb. What was once unthinkable becomes merely unpleasant. The tool that once generated fear begins generating resentment. Phalaris, like all tyrants, failed to recognize this transition. Or perhaps he did recognize it, and responded the only way he knew how, by increasing the frequency of executions. More victims, more spectacle, feeding the bull more often, as if volume could restore the lost impact. But in doing so he created enemies faster than he could eliminate them. Whispers of rebellion spread through the military. Secret meetings in darkened rooms, coded messages passed between generals who had once competed for Phalaris' favor, but now found common cause in their hatred of him. The bronze bull, meant to secure power through fear, had become the symbol that united opposition. Every bellow from that metal beast reminded the people of Akhrigas that their ruler was not the leader, but a monster, and monsters eventually fall. The coup came in 550 for BC, 6 years after Perillos' death. 6 years of bronze terror. It happened quickly. Telemachus, a rival Phalaris, had foolishly underestimated made his move with backing from both the military and the common citizens. Palace guards, turnkey officials defected within hours. The tyrant, seemingly unshakable grip on power, simply dissolved. Phalaris was dragged from his palace by the very soldiers who had once dragged victims to the bull. The crowd that had watched so many executions in numb silence now roared with approval. Justice. They called it poetic justice. They brought him to the square, to the bull. His bull. Historical sources diverge on what happened next. Some ancient writers claim Phalaris was roasted alive in his own device, dying exactly as his victims had died, the ultimate ironic reversal. Others suggest he was pulled from the bull before death and thrown from the cliffs overlooking the sea, the crowd denying him even the dignity of the execution method he had made famous. We would likely never know which version is true. Perhaps both accounts circulated because each offered a different kind of satisfaction, one emphasizing poetic justice, the other emphasizing that Phalaris was unworthy of his own creation. What we know for certain is that his reign ended that day, and with it the reign of the bull. The people of Akragos, traumatized by years of bronze terror, made a collective decision. The device was to be destroyed. Some sources say it was smashed with hammers, the bronze pieces scattered or melted down. Others claim it was buried in a secret location, hidden away where it could never be used again. But legends persisted. Stories circulated that the bull survived somehow, that it was secretly preserved by collectors of dark artifacts, that it surfaced centuries later in different locations. Rome, medieval Europe, always shrouded in rumor and mystery. Whether the original bull survived or not, the idea certainly did. The Brazen Bull legacy extends far beyond ancient Sicily. It became a template, a proof of concept, evidence that human cruelty could be systematized, aestheticized, turned into entertainment. Medieval Europe developed similar devices: the Iron Maiden, the Judas Cradle, various forms of enclosed torture chambers that isolated victims and transformed their suffering into spectacle for those outside. Different mechanisms, same principle: dehumanization through containment and performance. Even in modern contexts, we see echoes: psychological torture techniques that isolate prisoners, that strip away identity, that turn human beings into objects for study and control. The methods change, at the underlying logic, the reduction of person to thing, remains hauntingly familiar. The Brazen Bull was not history's cruelest execution method. Humans have devised far more prolonged and painful ways to kill each other. It was not even the most commonly used. Simpler methods like beheading or hanging were far more practical for everyday executions. But it was among the most calculated, most theatrical, most deliberately designed to transform suffering into art, to make the crowd complicit in horror. By making that horror beautiful, Perillos, in his desperate ambition, had invented something that transcended mere execution. He had created a machine that revealed an uncomfortable truth about power, that cruelty, when aestheticized, when given the veneer of sophistication, becomes easier to accept, easier to watch, easier to normalize. The bronze itself may have been destroyed, melted down, scattered lost to time. But the idea, the concept that torture can be refined, perfected, turned into something almost artistic, that idea never died, because the real horror of the Brazen Bull was not the device, it was the mind that imagined it. And those minds, ambitious, brilliant, willing to sacrifice humanity for recognition, still exist, still create, still pitch their innovations to those in power. The bull is gone, but we are still building it.